I've been thinking about training a lot recently and wondering why endodontists use the apprenticeship model of training instead of training their people professionally. So I thought I'd put this together. It really goes back to the slide that I love about what smart people do, and that they learn how to focus well and focus their team well, and they're not overwhelmed by apparent complexity. They break complex tasks down into very simple ones. And if you do that, you can train a person to do almost anything very, very quickly. As an example, using the dental example, we've trained people this way my whole career. In this training of Ingrid, who had no prior dental experience, we've done this over and over again with people. And it's possible to train an assistant to be extremely capable in about a week if you utilize the method that we're talking about. But for some reason, endodontists just seem to have a problem in understanding the concept. So let's use a non-dental example. Maybe it'll make it clear. Take a complex problem like stitching SEMs. Very few universities have the capability of doing this. It's a very, very detailed, very complex procedure to do this well, and yet I've trained Joy how to do it in about a week. Joy does all of my stitching now, and we trained her the way we trained her professionally, one step at a time. So you look at these stitched images, most universities can't do this. They lack a training ability because it takes time to do it. So I've got a very speeded up version here of doing a stitched image on an SEM. This is running at about 1,000 times speed, so you can see kind of how much time it takes to do this. But we're acquiring the images. You acquire an images, you move the scope, you acquire another one, you do a sequential acquiring of images in the area of interest, and then you stitch these together. So there's a lot of steps here. There's probably several hundred steps that each one must be mastered individually to be able to do this well. So I would call it a complex procedure, much more complex than dental assisting. But Joy has learned how to do this in a week. And then you learn how to stitch them together. You can use various programs. We use Photoshop to do it. And you bring the acquired images into Photoshop. We use Photoshop Elements, which is a pared down problem, and you load all of the images, and then you stitch them together. This, again, is a relatively complex process. It's not straightforward. It's not simple. But if you take it one step at a time, I've trained Joy. Joy actually does this better than I do it now. And she actually does all of my stitching. So we're able to do and operates the electron microscope as well. So here's an area of interest that we're going to stitch together in one of the GentleWave cases, actually. And those are the images that we're going to stitch together. We bring them into Photoshop, and we align them, and we create the collage that we want to create so that it's intelligible to people watching. You can view these on the MIE site if you're in the MIE group, and you can go through all of these stitched image. So each stitched image takes about an hour. And it has many, many steps to do it properly, and it has to be done in a very detailed way. Here she's assembling the images, one right after the other, and then aligning them. I've slowed this down a little bit from 800 so you can kind of get a sense of what this is like. And Joy learned this very, very quickly. you can see she's aligning the images. So she took all of these images and stitched them together herself. So my point in doing this is, if you train your people professionally, one step at a time, take complex procedures, break them down into steps. And if you train your people in that way, you won't believe how good they can become at what they do, instead of throwing them in an environment and just like an apprenticeship type method and just expecting them to learn on their own. That is not a professional way to train people. You create an environment where they can focus, where they can learn one skill at a time and master it, and then move on to the next skill. This stitching thing is mastering many skills, both in the taking of the images and pasting them together, but almost anyone can do it. So I hope maybe that example maybe gives you some insight into how you might want to train your people.